Hi everyone, Zach here, and welcome to Lesson 21 in this series on developing an RTS game in Unreal Engine 5. Before I say anything else, if you've been following this series as I'm releasing videos or on Patreon, please make sure to go to the description and get the updated assets from the link. The link in the video hasn't changed. I have just added in the rest of the buildings, icons, and potentially by the time of release of this video, the resource meshes as well. Okay, now, what are we doing in this video? Well, in this video, we are going to update our data table to have the rest of our base buildings, and we are going to start to work on the UMG elements, so our widgets, for our construction system. Go ahead and open up your project, and we'll make a start. Okay, so here we are back in the editor, and the first thing I'm going to do is go to my meshes folder. Actually, I'm going to correct myself. That isn't the first thing I'm going to do. The first thing I'm going to do is comment about a slight mistake. Good practice says that all these folders, all these directories, should be in a parent directory. And that is just to make organization easier and to make migrating also easier. Okay, that's just a little bit of a ramble. What I'm going to do is go into my meshes. Okay, and then from the meshes folder, I'm going to go into the buildings folder. And I'm going to bring over the new meshes. So I'm going to select factory, silo, and training post. I'm not going to bring in barracks since we already have it. Now, you'll notice that these all have one file in them. And that is going to play a little bit of a role in something I'm going to say in a moment. So I'm going to drag them in, minimize this, and we now have our import options. One thing I want to point out is because we have one FBX file, I'm not sure if I said mesh earlier, I meant to say FBX file, I have to open up advanced and make sure that combine meshes is turned off. We do not want to combine meshes. Also, if I really felt like it, and I'm going to say do not create a material for this. With that done, I'm going to hit import all. And we'll get a few errors because I'm not a 3D modeler and I have made some slight mistakes. We'll clear it. And despite what it seems like, everything has been imported in its separate folders. Let's take a quick look and see what we have. I know we've already seen the barracks, but I'm going to put that out. Actually, hang on. I'm going to grab the prep file instead. Okay, so here is our prep file. And you can see that we have our training post at start of construction, first stage of construction, second stage, our final stage of construction, and then completed. Likewise, same for our silo, moving from started into first stage, second, third, or final, and then completed. Our barracks you've already seen, so I'm not going to go over that one. Here's our factory. And yeah, there are issues with the UVs. Again, not a 3D modeler, so take that for what you will. All right, so back to our actual file for this. The next thing I want to do is I want to go back to my content folder and I'm going to go to textures. And in textures, I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this new folder our widget icons. Okay, so in my widgets icon folder, I'll pop that open. And then I'm going to go to my widgets element or widget elements. And I'm going to bring my icons in. Now, one thing we have to do after we bring them in is you'll notice they look a bit weird here. So if I just open one of them up, go into my texture group and change it to UI. And I do not believe we can bulk edit these, but let's take a quick look and find out together because it's been a while since I've done a bulk edit like this. So if we go to edit, selection, and property matrix, we can bulk edit. And can we change the texture group? I do not see that we can, but let's just double check. I'm also now getting weird lag that I wasn't getting earlier. We can change the texture group, so we'll change them all to UI in the bulk edit mode, and it looks like they've all changed. Go ahead and hit save. If we go back, you'll now notice they look correct. All right, that is what we need to import. Now let's go to our core, go to our data tables, and open up our buildings data table. And in here, we're going to add our factory. So let's just hit add here. And then we'll type in factory for the row name. And then it is industrial. It will be of type factory. For our stability, let's pop that open. And we'll set this to 50 and 50. Again, these numbers would need to be fine-tuned later on. It is not a spline, which is something we'll come back to in a later section. I just want to get the base building system out of the way. For our construction meshes, we need a total of 4 array elements. And I'm going to cheat a bit. I'm going to go back to our buildings list, and that is the wrong buildings folder. I need my meshes buildings factory, and I'm going to select the 4th factory, which is the least of the constructed. I'm going to use that just to get myself to the correct one. Same for this. So it's going to be 4, 3, 2, and then finally it'll be 1. For our base mesh, again, I'm just going to use the starting construction mesh to find our factory mesh. Actually, it should be SM factory. Sorry about them not importing correctly. All right, moving down so we don't make the same mistake as last time, our construction speed will be 60. And for our description, I'm just going to type in factory, if I can spell that correctly. And construction cost we'll take care of at another time. We can worry about that later. Right, just making that a factory did not save. Let me do that again. Sorry, I was just scanning up here to make sure everything minus the cost has been included. It looks like it has. Let's just save it. We'll add another in, and this one will be our silo, and it will be of type resource management. It will be our silo. And then for our stability, we will do, let's make this one a little bit weaker than the rest. You know, it has the legs it's standing on. We'll do 10 and 10. It is also not a spline. And again, we need 4, not 5 array elements. And yes, I could have clicked this to delete it, but force a habit. All right, and then just do the same cheating as before. We'll take the earliest part of the construction and use that to find the rest. So that's 4, 3, 2. That's the wrong one. I just said 3 again. 2, and then 1. And then for our completed mesh, we will use, well, just to make it easier, we'll find the silo again and do silo. Again, sorry about the names. And next, we'll add in our construction time. We'll make this 15 seconds. And we will give a description to this silo of a silo to store resources. And it would be helpful if I could see my mouse. A silo to store resources. Okay, I'm not sure why I added an exclamation mark. Again, I'm not going to worry about the cost for now. And let's add one more. And this will be our training post. And this will be of military type. It will be our training post. For our stability, we will give it a value of 25 and 25. Again, 4 elements here. And then I'm going to continue my cheating method because I like doing it that way. Why work hard when we can work smart, right? All right, so that's 3, 2, 1. And then for our final one, we'll use training post. Our construction time on this will be 45 seconds. Awesome. Now, if you want to go ahead and test this out right now, all you have to do is head over to your player controller. So if we go to player controller, and we have our little cheat method here, just change the row name so to match the row name from any of these. There are ways you can automatically populate row names, but I'm not going to be covering that in this video. I might talk about that later on. If you want to know a bit more about that, feel free to hit me up in the comments or on Discord. Right, with our data table done, I'm just going to close it out. I'm going to close out our player controller as well. We can move on to setting up the visuals for our UMG widgets. So I'm going to go back to my core. I'm going to go to, thought I fixed that typo, Widgets. I also just made that typo so much worse by spelling it wrong again. Widgets. Now, because I'm using source control, I might get some weirdnesses like this is still here. I'm just going to very quickly fix up my redirectors. Make sure that everything that's in our misspelled widgets folder goes bye-bye. It has. We can delete it now. I'm not sure why it jumped me down there, but okay. Try that again. Delete. Might have hit page down by accident or end. Right. So we're going to go into our subfolder, which is widget submenus. And in here, we are going to create a couple of new widgets. The first one that we are going to create is what I'm going to call our construction menu. Now, in terms of the design, I might have done something a bit weird, and I haven't quite decided how I want the overall UI to look. So we might change things up down the road. This particular widget won't change as far as I'm aware, but we'll talk about that in a moment when we get to the next part. So we'll do right-click, user interface, widget blueprint, and we'll use our user widget. We don't need one of the subclasses. This will be WBP construction menu. Let's pop this open. And the first thing we're going to do in here is we're going to change this from fill screen to desired. Next, we're going to add a size box in, and I'm just going to search, even though I know it's under panels, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it is under panels. And we are going to give a height and width override of 250 by 500. All right, and then we'll rename this as our construction menu size box. We will want to mark this as is variable. We'll talk about why that is later on. If you want a little bit of a hint, I put up a preview that I recorded a few days ago. You can put it earlier in the playlist, so you might have missed it. But it does cover what this menu will do and how it will look. Right, with that done, we're going to add in a border. And this is just to give us some ease and contrast to read it from. And our border, we're going to call our construction border. We do not need to mark this as is variable. We're going to go down to brush color. And I'm going to use my gray, which is 0.14 in the RGB. And for our alpha, we're going to set this to 60% or 0.6. I do not believe I've had any other edits for this part, but that might change as we go forward, because I always seem to forget something in a widget. Next, we're going to get a scroll box. Now, we're not probably going to use the scroll box, but this is useful if you have a lot more that you're adding in and you want to have a way to easily scroll through. So we'll just drop that in, and I'm going to call this our construction scroll box. All right, and I do not want to change any of the settings. I don't believe I have in my prep file, at least. Next, we're going to have our vertical box, and our vertical box in this case is going to serve as the anchor for everything that's going to be in here. So we're actually going to have other vertical boxes and a horizontal box and some other stuff. So the reason we use a vertical box here is we want to list things by their building type. So we're going to have civilian buildings, industry, resources, military, and if we have other ones, they'd be listed too. So we're going to call this our construction options anchor. So construction options anchor. And again, I don't believe I have any other settings I want to change in here. Then we're going to get another vertical box, and this will be our particular box for our section that we're looking at. So say civilian versus military buildings. So we're going to drop this in, and I am going to rename this just so I don't have to guess at what things are in a moment. This will be our civilian anchor. So anything related to civilian buildings will go in here. Then we are going to have a horizontal box. I don't think I've ever really spent much time in that tab. So in our horizontal box is what we're going to use to collapse the submenu and to say what the submenu is. So we're going to call this our civilian title anchor. Okay, and we're going to have a text, and we're just going to drop that in. Yay, it says text block, but it's in the wrong thing. Let's get it into the right thing. And this will be our civilian title text. So civilian title text, and we are going to just type in the word civilian. Cool. Next to this, and I'm just going to make sure that all this is set how I want it to be. Yep, I didn't do any changes here, sorry. We are going to have a button. And this button will be the button we use to collapse the menu underneath it or to expand it so we can either hide or see what civilian buildings we have. So I'm going to drop that into our titles anchor. And this one, we are going to want to move. We're going to want to use the right alignment. We are going to want to use fill. And I'm actually going to go back to my text. I'm not sure if I have my text on fill. I don't. And that is quite literally where I want it. And we are going to have that named as civilian collapse button. And this button, of course, will need some indication as to what it is. If you have icons, go ahead and use them, but I'm going to use text because I don't have an icon that I can give away for free. And this text, I am going to leave at this size. I'm not going to change anything. I am going to get rid of the text block, however, and just put a caret pointing up. Now, our default actually will be pointing down, and we'll use a V for that one, but gives you a rough idea of what we're looking at. All right, now that we've done that, we are going to, under our civilian anchor, eventually I'll be able to say that word, we are going to have a grid panel. Actually, we're going to have a uniform grid panel. Now, in this series, because I am not creating all these resources for people to use that you might have in your game, mostly because I'm not a 3D artist, we are using a grid panel so that we can have multiple buildings. But in this series, as I said, I'm not creating, multiple buildings for civilian, industry, resources, military. This is a springboard for you to work from, not a end-all be-all. But we're using it so we can have the buildings evenly divided that are civilian or industrial or resources, what have you. But in our case, really, for this tutorial, because there's only one building in each category, you don't need it. It is meant more for you to use in the future. So let's drop that into our civilian anchor. And we're going to name this as our civilian building or buildings anchor. All right, so in here, we're just going to have one button and one image in that button. All right, so we're going to grab our button. We're going to drop it in here, and we're going to call this our barracks button. I'm going to copy the name, so I'm going to use it in a second. And then we'll have an image. Now, before I do that, I'm just double checking some things. Yeah, that looks all right to me. So we'll drop our image into our button. All right, and for our image, we're going to rename it as our building, our barracks button image, or IMG. I'm going to use image. All right, we are going to change the size of it once we actually put an image in. So we are going to search for our T barracks. We'll add that. And then image size, we are going to use 64 by 64. Both of those, 32 and 64, are power of 2 numbers. If you want to know more about power of 2 numbers, see my video on optimization in the survival series. Cool. Now, I'm pretty sure I skipped a step, and I know I did. Let's go back to our civilian buildings anchor, and mark this as variable. I think anchor and editable are going to be 2 words I just do not like. Now, the reason why we have marked this as is variable is we're going to use this anchor, this uniform grid, as our method of hiding everything and revealing everything when we click this button. Now, why did we do all of the naming right now? And why did I make that comment about preventing myself from being confused? So I'm going to copy everything from civilian anchor downwards. And then I'm going to paste that into our construction anchor so that we have another one. And in this case, we're just going to start renaming things. This will be, instead of civilian anchor, this will be industry anchor. You know what? I'm just going to avoid that word and let you mock me for getting it wrong. I am not sure why I'm struggling with that word today. I'm just going to go down the line and kind of repeat that process of changing out the word civilian with industry. And then same with changing the actual name in the text itself. But this is what we're going to do. And to save you a bit of hassle, I'm just going to show you this once. And then I'll let you complete it on your own. And then I'll bring up my completed version so that you can do comparison and just quickly walk through it. So change that to industry. And this will be our, what do I have selected? This will be our industry collapse button. Oh, I guess we should have done these texts too. So this is civilian collapse button text. I think I spelled something wrong, or did it match it to this? I'm not sure what I did. I'm just going to copy this because I want the names to match. Oh, that is the wrong thing. And paste it into here. So it'll let me text. And we're going to mark this as is variable. I did skip that. I knew I skipped one. Okay, cool. So back into my industry one. So I'm mixing industrial industry. All right, again, we're going to mark that as is variable. And then put the word text in there. And instead of civilian anchor, oh my God. Let's just pretend that word doesn't exist. We will do industry buildings anchor. Instead of barracks, we'll have a factory button. We have copied that name again, and we'll do factories button image. All right, I'm going to pause here for a moment. I'm going to do the other edits really quickly, and then we'll come back together. Sorry, I'm unpausing really quickly to say that it's civilian, industry, resources, military that I'm doing. I'm also unpausing to say I totally forgot to change the building. Remember to change the icons. Okay, so what we now have is our civilian, the collapse button, our factory or our barracks icon, our industry with our collapse button, our factory button, our resources with its collapse button, our silo, our military with its collapse button, and a training post button. The images that you want to use are up to you. If you want to use what I'm using, go for it. Again, I'm not a 3D artist or a 2D artist, really. I'm a technical artist, so give me nodes. Things like this are just not in my wheelhouse. All right, with that done, we can save that, and we are done with it. I'm going to leave it open because I'll be doing the recording for the next video literally right after this one. Next, we're going to create another widget. Now, this is the one that I was kind of talking about earlier when I said I don't know if we're actually going to use it the way I am intending. And this is the widget that will be on the main UI that calls and closes our construction menu. I might keep this in. It depends on what we include. Like if we include skill trees, I'll probably include the icon to open the skill tree from in here. I might even include the resources on this part. I haven't decided. But we'll do a user widget. I'm going to call this WBP Activities Menu. And there might be other things we include in this. Again, let's pop that open. We're going to set to desired from our fill screen. And the first thing we are going to do is we are going to, like always, it seems, add a size box. Our size box will do a width and height override of 400 by 150. Those numbers seem familiar. It's the same we used for our game clock or our date time widget. And like our date time widget, we're going to add a scale box in here. Now our size box, we will name our activities menu. If it will let me hit the shift key, it will work. I recognize the shift key. Activities menu. And I'm going to copy that just so I have it ready. Size box. We don't need to mark that as a variable. And then we'll do a scale box after activities menu. Then we'll have our usual border. And we're going to use the same color as we did before. Not sure if I've shown this in this series. I'm pretty sure I have. But if you just click on this, you can usually drag a color up there. So like if I had been smart, in the last part, I would have done 0.14 and all of this, taken this color, dropped it up here, and I've been able to select it later on. Right, we have that set. We are going to do horizontal alignment change to center align horizontally though. And I'm going to go back up to my scale box, make sure everything is correct there. Same with this one because this looks a bit different already. So I'm not sure what I have done differently. Sorry, I already know what I've done differently and I'm not sure why I paused. In our scale box, we need to change this from scale to fit to fill. Right, our border will be our activities menu border. And yes, I can change the name over there. I know you've seen me do it once in this series, in this video in particular. All right, and then under that border, we are going to have our options 8 anchor, which we'll use a horizontal box for. And this will be our activities options anchor. We don't need to mark that as is variable. And then we're going to have our first icon in here. Sorry, our first button, which will have an icon. And this will be our construction button. So construction button. We are going to leave the vertical alignment as is, but we're going to change our horizontal alignment to center. In our button, we are going to change the horizontal and vertical alignment to center align. And then the padding, we're actually going to do 15 on the left, 0 on the top, 15 on the right, and 0 on the bottom. There we go. And then we'll have an image in there. And that image will be of our very badly done hammer. So that is T, construction. All right, and then I want to up the icon to also be 64 by 64. Awesome. All right, there we go. And the final thing we're going to do in this video, if we go back to our main window, or if you want to open up your content drawer in a different window, is we're going to find our BP or WBP main UI. And in our main UI, all we're going to do is first, we are going to right-click our game time. We are going to wrap it with a horizontal box. And in this horizontal box, if we go to user created and we find our activities menu, we are going to drop that into the horizontal box. Now, I want this to be ordered the other way around. So I'm just going to click this right arrow with the game time widget selected. So they switch positions. Awesome. That makes life easier. Next, I am going to take my construction menu and I'm going to drop it onto the screen and I'm going to anchor it to the right. I'm just going to move it so it's at the start position. And then I'm going to offset my X value by negative 0.5. I made a mistake in my prep file. I am going to follow my prep file as it. Actually, no, I'm not. We're going to move this on the Y to 0.45 just to see where it gives me. Interesting. My prep file has the same anchor, same everything. I'm just really curious, since I've messed up the position X, if that changes everything. It does. All right, so that's roughly where we want to put it. So I'm just going to find that by changing these values. So that's about 3.2. It's a little bit off from where the original is, but I kind of actually prefer this, and I'm going to leave it at that -45. Right, I'm going to go ahead, compile, and save. Now, there is one more thing I want to do, but let's just test this so we can see the menus on screen. Sorry to open my other window. There it is. Buttons are highlightable. They don't do anything. I know I said highlightable in a weird way, but the next thing I want to do is I want to select this menu and set it to hidden. All right, so if I hit play, we shouldn't see it. Now, what's going to happen in the next video is we'll make that window open, and then in that window, we'll make these buttons collapse and change their icons, or change their text, which is why we made the text a variable. Let's go ahead and make sure we actually did do that. We did. So they change the direction the arrow is pointing to indicate what you can do. When it's open, we'll point up to say we can close it. When it's closed, we'll point down to say, hey, it can open up. We'll also add in the ability that when we click these buttons, it will start our construction process. Okay, that takes us through what we wanted to do in today's video. I hope you've enjoyed this video and are getting happy to see the end of the construction system. In the next video, we'll set up our utility functions for it. This video and this series have been brought to you by Patreon sponsors, and you too can help this channel out. And all you have to do is like this video, leave a comment. It really does help it out. And if you want to be here when the next video comes out, make sure to hit that subscribe and notify icon. Okay? And if you want to take your support even a bit further, consider becoming a Patreon sponsor. Patreon sponsors at upper tiers get instant access to completed projects and ongoing projects from the YouTube channel. And at other tiers, get access to projects once they have finished. All right. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.